Hello. Hello. All right, this is working. Tem que falar em português. Boa tarde, bom dia, tudo bom, gente? É um prazer estar aqui. Queria um grande salve de palmas para o time da Satsconf, todo mundo que está aqui pondo essa conferência, né, essência, tipo assim, a melhor conferência do Brasil de Bitcoin, né? Vamos ser sérios. Então, parabéns a todos os participantes, voluntários, todo mundo que está aqui, né? Lucas, Carol, Kaká e todo mundo envolvido. Parabéns. Bom, meu nome é André Neves e eu sou bitcoinheiro brasileiro, mas eu moro fora já há uns 15 anos. Então, a palestra vai ser em inglês, tá? Bom, let's begin. The name of the talk is Build the Future Now, so let's talk about what that means. A little bit about myself and why you should care about what I have to say and why I'm on stage. I'm the founder and CTO of ZBD. Ivy just gave a great explanation of what ZBD is. But at our core, we have three verticals. We have the ZBD app, that's for consumers, users, content creators, gamers, you name it. That's how your entry point into Bitcoin and into Lightning and now into Nostr. We also have the ZBD API. The API is how the businesses, partners, developers, game developers integrate Lightning with ease into their systems. And last but definitely not least, it's NBD, which is our open source organization where we only focus resources towards open source things, which I'm going to talk about. I'm also the proud Director of Partnerships and co-founder of 21. We just heard a great talk and panel with Bruno, Davidson, Luciana about 21. And so I'm really proud to be fostering the Bitcoin developer community in Brazil, even if I'm afar. So let's begin. I like to start my talks by posing questions. What is innovation? What does it actually mean to innovate? So I figured the best way to guide the conversation was to create an analogy. I love this analogy of cubes. Cubes are these building blocks, right? They're these perfect six-sided little boxes, and you create them. And as technologists and product builders, we believe that we have the best cube. We think our solution is the best, right? And so we create it, and we put it out into the world, and we make this perfect little cube and hand it to a user. And then the user grabs the cube, looks at it, and then tosses it across the room. It's like, nope, that's not what you're supposed to do with that cube. But it doesn't matter. This is the hardship of innovation. It doesn't always play out your way. So today I wanted to talk about two cubes that we and Zebedee have been very pivotal on, and specifically what we've learned from this and some of the technical challenges as well. And yes, I'm talking about Lightning Network and Nostr because that's what everyone talks about now. We should change the name to Lightning Network Conference or something. So cube number one, let's go. Raise your hand if you know what this is on the board here. Do we know what this is? Yes, some of you. It looks like an email, but it's not. It's a Lightning address, right? Based on Ivy's question, lots of people have Lightning addresses here. So what is the Lightning address? The Lightning address was something we came up with in 2021, and we released it with the aim of improving the user experience for folks to transact in Bitcoin, whether it's sending or receiving. QR codes are cumbersome. Long hashes are confusing for normal users. I'm a normal user too. So we wanted to simplify it. And so in 2021, in August, we released the Lightning Address Protocol. And it's effectively the simplest way of sending and receiving Bitcoin around the world. Looks like an email. Your grandparents, your cousins, your kids, everyone knows how to send messages. Everyone knows how to send emails. Now you know how to send global money. Anywhere, everywhere. And it was quickly picked up, right? Not even a day later, influencers and podcasters were talking about how we couldn't even imagine what this is going to open up. I like to use this expression. The folks that were building, the engineers, the God engineers that were building the internet's predecessor called ARPANET back in the days, they were not solving the problem of 8K video game streaming from Japan to Brazil at 120 frames per second, right? That was not the focus. The focus is sending a message from A to B. But the internet now is video game streaming 8K from Japan to Brazil, right? So we're just scratching the surface. And not even 2 days later, we saw a bunch of providers pop up because users and providers alike saw the value in the Lightning address protocol. And so just like you have multiple email addresses, people started having multiple Lightning addresses. In early 2022, I was invited to give a talk at MIT about the Lightning address protocol, given its sudden rise in adoption. And in that talk, I was able to explain the impact of standards and explain the impact of a unified standard where everyone understands each other, speaks the same language. One way to think of this is emails, right? Everyone here has emails. That's a statement I can make. Everyone here has emails. But not everyone uses the same provider. Some of you are Gmail, some of you are Outlook, some of you are Yahoo, I'm Proton, right? But we speak the same language. We speak simple mail transfer protocol. And so therefore, we can talk to one another. The Lightning address does this for Bitcoin, for Lightning. And so you can do this, your name at zbd.gg, right? And this is the simplest way to send and receive money. It's that simple. You don't need anything else. And the funny thing is, when we created this cube, a bunch of developers picked up the cube and threw it so much farther than we thought was possible that amazed me. We now have Lightning address support across a myriad of applications and services, including video games, wallets, music and podcasting services, exchanges, phone top-ups. Even in Minecraft, you can use Lightning address inside of Minecraft. So folks have taken that technology and pushed it really, really far. And that's what's interesting about cubes. That's what's interesting about open source development. I didn't do any of this, right? People took that technology and built it forward. And the Lightning address is now the standard. And I say this because no Bitcoin Lightning product goes to market without support for Lightning address one way or another. And that's really impactful. And just like Michael Saylor says, Lightning is going to be as common as email. I too believe that. He went a step further and did some crazy things and decided to turn all of the corporate email addresses from MicroStrategy, which are hundreds, maybe thousands, into Lightning addresses. Effectively, everyone in MicroStrategy has a Lightning wallet in their email. And that's because of the Lightning address. So what do we get? We get user-readable, addresses, no more complicated QR codes. The Lightning address is an open source protocol. Anyone can build upon it. They can build with it. They can improve it. It is the simplest and most familiar user experience for developers and for users alike. And last but not least, it can be entirely self-hosted. You don't have to use a provider. You can host your own. I can have André at andre.com, right? And that could be my Lightning address. So let's onboard the next billion people because this is the way we do it. So that's cube number 1. So let's go to cube number 2. Raise your hands if you know what this one is. Hey, I saw a couple hands. Okay, a couple people know what this is. It looks like an email. It is not one. It looks like a Lightning address, but it is not one. This is a Nostr address, a NIP5. And below it is my Nostr public key, my npub, right? There's a reason why they're very similar, you may be thinking. And that's because the creator of Nostr works at Zebedee. So let's talk about that. Nostr is a project that has been underway since late 2020. It's an open source project primarily driven by Fiat Jeff. Fiat Jeff is our open source developer, our head of NBD. He leads any and all of ZBD's open source initiatives. And as the creator of Nostr, we've supported all of that since the beginning. Fiat Jeff wanted to solve a couple problems in social media and specifically in communications protocols. And so he created Nostr, which stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. He's very good at naming things. And it's meant to be an open protocol, a simply open protocol for communications. That's it, nothing else. It has a chance of working, is how he puts it. So before we do that, let's explain a little bit of the problems that traditional social media platforms face and why we even chose to pursue, working in this open source protocol. I put Twitter and X at the top, but you could switch that to anything, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, TikTok. First thing, tons of ads. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. You scroll through Twitter, every 5 posts, there's an ad right there. I don't know if it bothers any of you, but I hate that there is no historical feed anymore. It's all based on an algorithm that's trying to feed you information such that you stay in the app, such that they can further monetize you as you continue scrolling. Are you familiar with being the product? That's what this is. Twitter constantly bans and shadow bans people if they disagree with you, if they don't like you, if they don't like your opinions. And let's not get started about the spam, right? Everyone's seen the spam from bots and so forth. These are just some very quick examples of Twitter shunning and shutting down and disabling accounts of competitors. This is not how global social media needs to work. This is not scalable. They decide what is real and what is shared. And so Nostr comes in with a lot of, let's call them fixes, and proposals to fix it. At first, the top, it's completely decentralized. I'll explain how that works. It's fully interoperable in the sense that you don't need to use the Twitter app to talk to the Twitter server. You can use a number of apps to talk to a number of servers. Nostr has tight coupling with Lightning and with Bitcoin. Therefore, we can do things like spam mitigation, right? We can do things like global payments, and we'll talk about that. And last but definitely not least, we'll talk about censorship resistance and identity ownership. So how does it actually work? Let's say Alice opens her phone and grabs her Twitter app and opens it. Okay, what actually happens behind the scenes is Twitter talks to Twitter servers. The end. That's it. That's the experience, right? Now, Alice also has a TikTok account, and she has a Facebook account, and she has an Instagram account, and she has each of those. That's why all of us have 50+ accounts with all these providers. But Alice can't use the Twitter app to view TikToks, and she can't use the Facebook app to view Twitter. And that's because they are siloed platforms. They are proprietary platforms. They are not open source. There's no standard. There's no common language between them. And so, unlike these platforms where you have an email and password, Nostr works very similarly to Bitcoin. If you're familiar with private keys and public keys, very similar. They actually use the same cryptographic algorithm, actually. So usually you have a public information, which is something like your email address, a phone number, a user ID, and you have a private portion of your user, which is your password, your passphrase, your 2FA, right? In Nostr, it's similar. You have a public key, and you have a private key, right? In Twitter and in Facebook and in normal traditional social media, you get apps, right? So you have an app on your phone, you may have an app on a web app, and these are Twitter apps, for example, or Facebook apps. In Nostr, these are called clients, but they're the same thing. And we talked about the Twitter server, the Facebook servers. In Nostr, they're called relays, but they're the same thing. So let's switch it up and show you what it looks like on the Nostr scale, right? Instead of proprietary Twitter to Twitter, Facebook to Facebook, and TikTok to TikTok, we get Alice is using Demis, which is one Nostr app, and connecting to Relay 1, 2, and 3. And Bob is using ZBD, which is another Nostr app. And Carol is using Amethyst, which is another Nostr app. Just like in an email, they can all communicate with each other because they all speak the same language, right? And they can connect to one another. So this is really, really powerful. So let's talk about censorship resistance. Why do we say that Nostr is censorship resistant? Why can't someone just ban you or remove your posts? Well, let's go through an exercise. Let's say that Alice starts spewing a bunch of hate. Let's say she starts saying some things that the operator, the owner of Relay 3, whether it's a person, an enthusiast, a company, you name it, let's say they don't like Alice and they want to block Alice and say, Alice, you're out of here, just like Twitter does every other day. So then Relay 3 blocks Alice's users, which basically means Alice can no longer post to Relay 3. Okay, that's fine. She can still post to Relay 1 and 2, right? Should be fine. Her friends can connect to her through Relays 1 and 2. But let's say it expands, and let's say that then Relay 2 doesn't like Alice, right? So, okay, what happens? Well, she can, because it's an interoperable system, anyone can connect to any number of relays. So you could connect to relays 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? And then now there's a chase because everyone has to decide to block Alice. Alice cannot be shut down. She can't be, removed from the network. And that's because Alice owns her identity. The identity doesn't belong to the platform. She has a public and private key that represents her user, her followers, her metadata in the network. And so relays 5, 6, and 7, 8, and 9 could be, could have different properties. Some of them could be paid relays. Some of them could be premium relays. Some of them could have spam mitigation, right? And so there will always be a relay in the world willing to accept your information. That's why we have websites that cannot be hosted in certain countries and certain servers, but they move somewhere else, and they're still around on the internet, right? And that's the reality. So Alice is unstoppable, and she's so unstoppable that she could actually run her own relay, right? No one can stop that because it's that simple. It's an open source protocol. So Alice can run her own relay and own her data and tell everyone to connect to alice.alice.com, for example, and that's how you find Alice's information. So in 2022, I believe it was October last year, I was invited to give the keynote speech at Tabconf. Tabconf is the Atlanta Bitcoin conference. And Tabconf is the most technical conference for Bitcoin in the world. So I was standing in a stage similar to this with much smarter developers in front of me, filled with developers in front of me, and I announced NBD, our open source initiative. And NBD, one of the focus areas is, yes, Lightning Network, Lightning address, but on the bottom right, you may see Nostr. It just went over everyone's heads. No one really knew Nostr. Some of us did, but it was really, really, really early. And this is a way to gauge developer interest, right? If you're familiar with GitHub, these are GitHub stars. Basically, this defines, I'm a developer, I'm interested in this, I like this, I'm going to star it, right? The idea is the more stars you have, the more activity, the more development is likely to happen in this project. So you could see some organic growth over the past, 2-ish plus years. And then this happened. And then Jack Dorsey got a whiff of Nostr. And Jack is very involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Because myself and ZBD and Fiat Jaf are also very involved in the ecosystem, he got a whiff of Nostr, got engaged with Fiat Jaf, and decided to donate money to pursue that open source initiative further. Except that he donated $250,000 to it. And what happens when you receive $250,000? People will beg for money. And so actually people started asking for money, but that's besides the point. What happened is this happened, right? Developer interest quadrupled immediately. What you see is the announcement at Tabconf first, and then roughly 6 weeks later, Jack donating that and sort of telling the world that Nostr is here, and from his point of view, it's something that is incredibly valuable. And that just skyrocketed, right? And what happens when developers get interested in protocols and they get interested in new technologies? They build. They build apps, they build services, they build relays, they build applications, they build everything. And so now there are tens of different implementations of Nostr relays, Nostr servers. There are easy ones, there are very complex ones, there are incredibly technical ones. Same thing can be said about the apps. There's many, many, many apps for Nostr now, and they don't have to be just Nostr. Some of them are Nostr and music, some of them are Nostr and podcasting. ZBD is Nostr and gaming, right? And so the way to think of this is it's just an interoperable protocol. We all speak the same language, but we have different focus areas. But the user of ZBD is not bound by ZBD's infrastructure. The user of ZBD can talk to the user of Demis, to the user of Primal, and any other Nostr app. Right? It's just like Bitcoin. It's interoperable. And this is a post from Twitter support, I believe it was in January of this year, where they named Nostr as one of the big ones. We're like, look, we're going to start banning accounts, yada, yada, yada. I said Twitter bans accounts left and right. There it is. And so they said Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, Nostr. This was 2 months after that. We made it, right? Like, we're on the big leagues now. People understand what Nostr is and there's value. And so I wanted to just show a little bit of a comparison because in pink, that's Bitcoin. But, that's up and to the right. That's how we like it. But I wanted to compare the developer interest of Nostr with other decentralized technologies. So in blue, it's IPFS, which is a decentralized cloud storage solution. And in yellow is Lightning Labs' LND implementation, which as of today is still the predominant implementation for Lightning Network. The little red poking through, that's Nostr. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to shoot up like that, but you can see the developer interest. Compare it to Bitcoin, compare it to IPFS, compare it to every other one. Right? This is very impactful. And another reason why I believe it's the case is because Nostr is so incredibly simple. It's a set of instructions, and everything in Nostr is an event. That's what this is. So at the top, there's only 7 properties to a Nostr event. At the top, there's an ID, which is a unique identifier of that post, of that event. The pub key, that's me, my public key, my Nostr public key saying I am sending this. I have some metadata around timestamp that I sent it, some tags, but really this is a post and it says good morning. That's it. And at the bottom, I sign it with my private key to basically say I am proving that I made this post. That's all that Nostr is. It's that simple. And so developers ate it up and everyone is building on it. For the technically minded folks in the room, I like to say that Nostr is actually Schnorr-signed JSON messages relayed over WebSocket servers. The developers in the room understood that. No one else did. That's okay. And here is ZBD in action, right? This is screenshots from the ZBD app where we have a full-blown Nostr interface. Users can interact with any Nostr client. They can send photos. They can make posts. They can DM. They can send money to each other, right? This is live. You can head over to zbd.gg and learn more. But at our core, ZBD consumes open networks. And when I say consume open network is we use open source software, but we also use these open protocols. So at ZBD, we only do Bitcoin, which is an open source protocol. We do Lightning, which is an open source protocol. And we also do Nostr, which is an open source protocol. So we consume open networks, right? That's what we do. And what happens when you combine 2 cubes? We talked about the first cube, Lightning address, and the second cube being Nostr. What happens when you combine them? Well, we didn't combine them. Someone else did, right? And what that means is they combined those 2 to create a new cube, a third cube, right? And this cube is called zaps, right? Zaps are effectively Lightning payments over Nostr through Lightning addresses. So just like you would add your email address to your Twitter profile, and folks would then find you to be able to email you, you can put your Lightning address on your Nostr profile, and then folks can send you money globally. So here is screenshots of the ZBD app where on the bottom right, I can click the Zap button, and I can send you money. I don't need to know if you're using ZBD. I don't need to know what wallet you use. I don't need to know where in the world you are. I don't need to know your name, and I can send you money. Think about that. You don't need to know anything about that person, and you can send them money. It's going back to the premise of money, being able to transact with people without needing to trust them. You can do that in social networks now. And this is the power of cubes. So you may be thinking, well, okay, it's Lightning address and Nostr, and therefore it's zaps. But it's really not. It's really not. It's actually a lot of other cubes put together, right? And we could start with Bitcoin, which itself is a cube made out of many other cubes. But Bitcoin was the first one, and then we had to build Lightning, right? And then we had to build LNURL technologies, which is a separate thing. And then we had to build a Lightning address on top of it, which is yet another thing. And then we had to put zaps on it. So it's always building upon new technologies, and it's always making bigger cubes from other cubes. These are building blocks. And so if you're building software, if you're trying to start a company, if you're trying to build something in the space of Bitcoin, Lightning, and Nostr, opt for open networks because there's a lot more value in open networks than there are in proprietary software. Whenever possible, opt for open source. Every company in the world that is technical company in the world, technology companies, all use open source software. From the Linux server all the way to all the packages that we import in our code bases. Everything is open source nowadays, and we must support it. That's why we have NBD, our organization that focuses solely on this. The ZBD app is the culmination of everything that I've just described. We've focused over the past 3 years in video game support. We power money inside of video games. And now, with the ZBD app, you can play games and earn Bitcoin. You can chat with your friends over Nostr, whether they are in ZBD or not. You can send money globally, regardless of where people find themselves, or what clients they use, or what app they use, or what type of phone they have. And all of this is baked into the ZBD app, right? This is the future we are building. The talk name is Build the Future Now. This is it. Do yourself a favor and download it. Zebedee's here to empower customers, businesses, content creators, gamers, whoever, with the power of Bitcoin economy engines. We give you the power to create experiences powered with money, with real global money. And that's how we build the future now. Thank you very much. This has been ZBD.